Hello, sir. How are you doing, Stuart? Hey, do you happen to know where my morning reports book is? I think I got it. I got it right here, sir. Thank you. And are you working on the requisition for fuel? Yes, sir. I'm filling it out right. Good, good. And where's my prescription book? I've been looking everywhere for it. Yes, sir. Right here. And I need the monthly expenditures report by the end of the day. Today? I mean, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Did you send out the letters to the general? Uh-huh. Good. All right. And carry on. Okay. Thank you, sir. Greetings. Welcome to Mr. Dyer's Musings. I'm Mr. Dyer, and today we're going to talk about Surgeon's Call and specifically discuss what life was like on the front lines and giving you some tools to use at Living Histories or Reenactments to make the experience a little bit more engaging and a good success. As always, I like to thank my wife and family for their unconditional support. I like to thank my students, as always. I like to thank my viewers and subscribers. Our channel is growing. Thank you so much for your support. If you haven't done so already, please check out my other videos after this, see if it's stuff that you like, and please consider subscribing and sharing. That way, others can experience this educational journey with us together. I also like to thank my patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much. I appreciate your financial support, and as always, there's extra little videos for you. And if you are considering supporting me on Patreon, I appreciate it. Check out the link down below, and you can see what others are experiencing right along with you as an additional support. If you like minutia and detail, that's where it's at. Okay, so let's talk about sick call. So we left off in part one talking about by the book what Surgeon's Call looked like. We talked about the times, when it was supposed to be, the processes. Well, this video is specifically going to focus on the tools of making sick call or Surgeon's Call a success at a reenactment or living history, and it's also going to briefly discuss some primary sources based off of memoirs and like John Billings, Hardtack and Coffee, and John Wilder, or Surgeon Wilder, of the 55th Massachusetts U.S. Colored Troops. Both are excellent examples because they go in tremendous detail about what life was like and how sick call or Surgeon's Call was administered. So here we go. So this book and this book is made by Charlie's Boat Works. He's the only guy who makes these. And it's not 100% accurate, but he did a pretty good job with it. And he designed it right off of one that is kept in a personal collection. And I talked to the same collector, and he did a good job. So Charlie's Boat Works, this is where you get this. The next thing you need to get is the prescription book. The prescription book is where the hospital steward, maybe the assistant surgeon, or an attendant will record the diagnosis of the doctor. Okay, so they might say, hey, 2 Epicac pills twice a day, all right? Or excused from work or excused from duty, report for surgeon's evening call, or something like that, okay? So this is the records that everything's going to be written down as far as what the prescription was for that particular ill man. And what's nice is you can even put down in here that the person was faking duty or faking his illness. So if he comes back again, you can kind of look back and be like, it says on this date here, you were showing these symptoms. And maybe it wasn't faked. Maybe it's a later symptom of a serious illness. Anyhow, get creative with it, do your research, etc. And if you haven't seen my videos yet of nurse or attendants, because they might help out with this and writing down, check that out here. So in Charlie's Boatworks example, you can see, just like the original, there's an example of how to fill this information out, which is incredibly useful. The same thing can be said about the morning reports and how that one was filled out. And it's different from the actual morning reports form that would be sent to the medical officer. When I do this, I do actually write down the various illnesses, etc. And it's enjoyable for me because I can look back and it's kind of like a diary, like, oh yeah, let's see. I remember this reenactor at this event. This is what he had last time. And you can either kind of add to it or kick it off a different way. But it's just a really good way of bringing some realism to it. So let's talk about some other books that you're supposed to have. You need to have a register of patients, which you can just put in a regular book, a case book, and order and letter book. Now the case book is going to be your own surgeon's medical book about specific cases that you would add notes. In the prescription book, there's also a place for you to add notes. But in just a regular, traditional lined notebook, you can grid it out because there is, like they said in the appendix, ways for you to write that out. And the originals, for the most part, were actually handwritten out. They weren't ordered like this one, where they come all nicely printed. An order and letter book. Now, the order book and letter book, that's where general orders get stowed. So if there's some correspondence that needs to be recorded and kept, you would, well, not you as a surgeon, but either an attendant or the hospital steward would write those orders in the book so they could be referenced later. And it's one less piece of paper that could get lost in a loose form. All right, so that's sick call by regulations. Let's talk about what the personal experiences are. We're going to start with John Billings and Hardtack and Coffee. John Billings is an enlisted man in the artillery, and his description of the sick call followed the same lines as the medical officer's manual. But he goes into a little bit more detail about how there were a lot of soldiers who just faked their illness. He also talked about some of the lack of capability of various surgeons in the service. And he goes on a rant and kind of complains about that. He also backpedals a little bit and says that there were a lot of good surgeons out there that really did. He mentions how there are common medicines that were prescribed for everything. So if you're in the military, a lot of times they'll say, take some Tylenol and you're good to go, and it cures everything. Well, military really hasn't changed very much. Back then, according to John Billings, it was quinine. Quinine was given for everything. And if came from my Coolidge case, if you haven't checked out that video, it's above. But quinine was a pretty common medicine to give. Most of the issues of soldiers dealt with the bowels. And John Billings talks about how quinine fixed everything with bowels, with headaches, or whatever it was. Quinine, in truth, was primarily distributed to handle and try to control malaria, especially during late spring, throughout the summer and early fall, because it's the South. There are a lot of mosquitoes in the area, and these guys didn't live in comfy barracks. They're living outside. So malaria was a real concern, and quinine was issued quite a bit. It was issued in pill form, and it was also issued in liquid form. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that John Wilder is one of my favorite Civil War surgeons. His detail is just impeccable. I have yet to read one that has so much detail. And John Wilder, in this memoir, Practicing Medicine in a Black Regiment, he was the surgeon of the 55th Massachusetts U.S. Colored Troops. And he talks about sick call quite a bit because he's an assistant surgeon. It kind of fell on him to do sick call quite a bit. And even when he was stationed in Florida, he talks about the time and how the time of surgeon's call or sick call was adjusted. In the mornings, when he was stationed, it tended to be 8:30 or 9 o'clock. They preferred to do it a little bit later. It's right after breakfast, which falls in suit with this book here, and the suggestion that you do it after breakfast and right before dinner. So he goes on and talks about visiting the sick when they're in the tents. So if someone was stationed in quarters, they were relieved of duty. As a surgeon, you would be going around making these rounds to the ones who were in their tents. They weren't necessarily in a hospital because they weren't terribly contagious, and you would check on them to confine to quarters. He also talks about visiting other regiments when there was a shortage of surgeons, because maybe a surgeon was on leave or they had to travel for something else. It kind of fell on him to travel. He also attended sick call for various civilians as kind of a humanitarian aid. So that's a unique, different piece of information that you didn't get from the handbooks. So there you go. That is sick call in a nutshell. Again, I would strongly urge you to try having a sick call at your next living history or reenactment event. Talk to the commanding officer of the regiments who are participating, see ahead of time, see if they'd be willing to back you up on it. Bring it up at the officer's call if nothing else, but you do need to come prepared. Like I said, get those little note cards with the information. That way the soldiers, the reenactors, they can pretend to have those various symptoms, and you have the opportunity of diagnosing and prescribing. Have someone, either an attendant or if you don't have a hospital steward, sit at a desk who's writing down in the notebook. But I strongly urge, get the chance, and if you can, get the prescription book and Morning Reports book from Charlie's Boat Works, because that's legit. That's as close as we got. All right. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, please leave them. Please like if you haven't done so already. If you like this video, please subscribe and help grow our channel, help out others find this as we got. All right. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, please leave them. Please like if you haven't done so already. If you like this video, please subscribe and help grow our channel, help out others find this educational journey that we're on and join it with us. If you're new to my channel, check out the other videos, see if you like it. Consider supporting me on Patreon and getting some extra deeper dive information about the various topics that we discuss on this channel. Thank you very much. Give a kiss and hug to your loved ones, and take care.